Thank you, Reverend. Call the meeting to order. Any items from the public? All right. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. President, if there's no modifications or changes to the agenda for Thursday, August 18th, I move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Any questions on the purchase order for Mr. Davis?
Mr. President, if I may just point out two things, that the purchase order looks like it's exceptionally large this week. But there are just two or three items that really make up the lion's share of our disbursements. Of course, there's the quarterly payment to the library for the first quarter of this fiscal year. But also at the bottom of page 4 and the top of page 5, you'll see that there's a payment in the amount of $56,375 to Crabtree Rohrball and Associates for the construction documents needed for the renovations of the Dunn Building. And then there's $212,043 payable to Bolin Train Services for the upgrades to the air conditioning for 510 South Raleigh Street and 380 West South Street, which the council has already approved. All of those expenses will be reimbursed to us from the ARPA funding. We've already discussed that. That's already been earmarked. But we met with Tracy and Tracy Gilliams, and what we typically do is pay the invoices, wait until the check clears, and that way we have a real clear audit trail, invoices and payment, and then we just reimburse ourselves. So probably in the state budget revision that we do at the end of this month, we have a fairly large ARPA reimbursement check that we received after the last state budget revision. We'll have another one, so we'll probably have between $700,000 and $800,000 of ARPA reimbursements that we'll do. So, like I said, at first glance, it looks like it's a big PO, but it's really not that big.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Davis on that?
Not that, but there, just down, it says West Virginia Association of Counties dues. What do we get for that?
Well, we discussed our dues for the County Commissioners Association and the West Virginia Association of Counties last year. Combined, they're about $11,000. If you'll recall, last year the council made a decision to withhold funding until representatives of both the County Commissioners Association and West Virginia Associations of County Commissioners met with you.
We're just on their list of
We are,
Payne County.
you know, we're not under any obligation. They have been working, both the County Commissioners Association and the West Virginia Association of Counties both have new executive directors. And I will say that they did work pretty closely with Summer last year on some of our legislative priorities. So I think that we got more of a return on our investment last year than we had in previous years.
There's a little bit different mindset with Jonathan in there.
There is, and Jonathan does stay in pretty constant contact with me to see, you know, what do you need, what can I do. He does come to the Eastern Panhandle a little bit more often than some of the previous directors have. So
Yeah, once a year is not.
I think the biggest thing, Jim, is maybe sometimes not so much what we get out of it, but what we can contribute to it.
Well, it's
Both,
they're a lobbyist group for
Right.
us,
pretty much.
and you know, it's like how successful are they? How aggressive are they? You know, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I can say that we're more aggressive for our
Yeah.
legislative issues than they would be, because we're one of the few counties that have the situation that we have.
Yeah. Well, there's West Virginia, and then there's us,
Right.
and
Maybe we ought to invite him up, just an open invitation, if he's in the area, to come in one day.
we can do that. The other thing, and I was going to bring it up when you talk about your county council calendars, this is about the time of the year that we
start talking about?
start talking about our legislative priorities. So I assume you want to do the summit again this
Sure.
year?
Hmm.
Okay.
And maybe we need to check with the legislators and see if there's a better time for them to do that, you know, and
Yeah, not
Check
in
with-
terms or
check
something
with
like
their
that.
schedules. Hmm.
And I would hope that with this organization, they should be able to help provide additional information with the personal property tax legislation that's being pushed, that hopefully they can keep us apprised of what's going on.
So you thinking out about having this, you're talking, it doesn't matter whether it be after election or before the election.
It doesn't.
Right, okay. All right, and,
And if you remember last legislative summit, Jennifer Piercy, who was with the County Commissioners Association, and Jonathan both attended our legislative summit at our request.
I think, Eddie, it'd probably be, in my opinion, might be best to have it shortly after the election. Only because at that point in time, you'll know who's gonna be in these seats, and then they can attend and be part of it.
We'll work on that.
All right, moving on to change in status, new hire recommendation received from Randy Lilly, Emergency Service Manager for Jalen Henson, as a firefighter with an annual salary of $54,227, effective September 6, 2022. New hire recommendation received from Gary Wine, Deputy County Administrator for David Stevens, as a technical fleet specialist with an annual salary of $51,192, effective September 1st, 2022. New hire recommendation received from Gary Wine, Deputy County Administrator for Chase Greenwald, as a GIS specialist 2 with an annual salary of $54,942, effective August 22nd, 2022. Change in status received from Randy Lilly, Emergency Service Manager for Thomas Presley. He is going from a firefighter 4, 42 hours to a firefighter 4, 56 hours. His salary would be going from $68,009 to $74,711, effective September 3rd, 2022. Letter of resignation received from the Day Report Center for Jillian Gonzalez, effective August 11, 2022. Letter of retirement received from the Sheriff's Department for Colleen Thompson, effective July 15, 2022. Letter of resignation received from the Day Report Center for Rebecca Bingelman, effective August 15, 2022. Letter of resignation received from the Day Report Center for Roger Mueller, effective August 12, 2022.
These, Tim Zion always seems to have a bigger proportion of resignations than anybody else.
I know, that's what
Where are these people resigning to take another job, or do you know?
Well,
big turnover.
You know, I'll use Julian Gonzalez as an example. She was a therapist that was hired to come here, and she was actually going to relocate from New Jersey to here. Had some problems with, finding an apartment and adjusting to the area, and really decided this wasn't.
She was a new hire.
She was only with us for 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
And decided this really wasn't what she wanted to do. The other two, one was a peer recovery coach, and Mr. Bueller was a drug tech. Just the kind of the nature of the work, they decided that's not what.
Well, I didn't know if they were leaving for other jobs
No.
because it was paying more.
No,
Just nature of the beast.
just nature, kind of nature of the beast.
Bless you.
Any other questions on the change in status? We have approval of minutes, August the 4th, 2022. I was not present, so
Mr. President, I move to accept the minutes for August 4th, 2022. No, wait a minute. I did have a correction. Under consent agenda approval, Councilperson Gokenhour made a motion to approve the consent agenda for August 4th, Berkeley County Council meeting. No second, vote recorded. That was my correction. And then I moved to approve.
all right. Have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries and I'll abstain. County council calendars, let's see, be here next Thursday. And then the county government will, well, on September the 5th, just so everyone knows, be closed for Labor Day. All
End
right,
of summer,
huh?
the end of summer.
Yeah. The start of the best season, fall.
Yeah.
The schools are back in on the 22nd.
Our grandkids started this Monday.
Is that right?
Taking time away from Pappy. One of the things that we need to start back up is an honorary council person. All right, I meant to get some of my grandsons in there before the school started, but I didn't do it. All right, so we have tomorrow 10 a.m. farmland protection. Monday the 22nd, 1 p.m. historical landmarks. Water district meeting has been canceled
It's moved to the 29th.
to the 29th, okay. We have the Wednesday the 24th, 10 a.m. CVB, 3 p.m. senior services. Thursday the 25th, 5 p.m. ambulance authority, 5 p.m. library. Any changes or corrections on boards and commissions? We have stop payment check request from the county clerk's finance office. Any questions on that one?
There's also a void in there as well, Mr. President.
I'm sorry,
There's a void in there as well.
a void. Anybody have any questions on the voided check? Checks. All right. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion on the floor?
Second?
Second, any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Next on our agenda is Larry Hess, the assessor, on some tax exonerations.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Got a few today, not quite as we had. First one is taxpayer error. They forgot to write off their vehicle. So we had to put it in as a taxpayer error for $26.19.
All right.
Mr. President, I move to approve the personal property taxpayer error in the amount of $26.19.
Have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor say aye. Everyone that opposes?
Aye.
Nay. All right.
Do have personal property, we do have 2 pages, I think there's a total of 13 of them on there. For the reasons that's listed, most of them are double bill and that type of thing. They come up to $2,252.47 for those 13.
All right, so the bills will this bill takes care of the total bill and then they got a new bill, is that right?
Yeah.
How? and let me
Yeah,
ask-
like when you see, well, you don't see these sheets, but when you see full exoneration, in other words, we exonerate the whole bill,
Okay, so this is
let's
just
say-
a difference.
it's just a difference.
I was gonna say, cause how can a 2019 Jeep be 3666 and a 2012 Honda be 167.85?
It's just the difference.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion on the 13 personal property tax exoneration due to office error.
So move to approve.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
Well, thank you. You have, for real estate officer, we have 4 of them. They're keyed for a couple of them, they had a farm, that didn't get keyed on it, that type of thing. But for the 4 of those, they come up to $1,171.84.
Entertain a motion on the 4 real estate tax exonerations due to office error.
A motion to approve the real estate exonerations in the amount of $1,171.84.
Second.
Have a motion. We have an early second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I have, and I want to make a comment on this, it was for Quad Graphics last year. If you remember, in October, it came in for appeal. And of course, the state tax department handles this. We don't there to touch the state tax department stuff.
All right.
At any rate, they agreed to reduce the value from 49 million something down to 43. And of course, they have a pilot agreement, and the bill hasn't been made up yet. The only reason we made this exoneration of was the fact that the 22, if you look on the computer, the 22 didn't get changed on the computer. The state didn't do any changing last year after we had the hearing. So the 22 tax year on the system shows the 49 million, which the bill that Anthony's going to make up is only going to be for 43 million. So we made this up. Anthony thought I ought to make this up just to have something on record, because the bill that he's going to make up for the pilot agreement won't match what's on the computer. So this just shows that we're reducing the 22 value from 49 million down to 43 million. So basically, that's all it is. The bill hasn't been made up at all yet, so there's no money when you see that
You just need to.
$3.5 million there.
You need to just take it off your books.
Yeah, that's just a reduction in the value. It should have been taken out of the appraised value last year and just need to take it off.
All right, well, you open up a little bit of a conversation for me. Is one of the things that I've never really followed through, and we've got approximately 11 pilots right now. So how is that process? Who, and Mr. Davis, you might know, I'm sure you know a lot more than what I do, but how do we make sure that these pilot agreements don't slip through the cracks? Whose responsibility is it to make sure that these pilot payments, payment in lieu of taxes, gets paid and
Anthony,
meets the criteria?
Anthony monitors all that.
Okay, all right. All right, just want to make sure.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And he does a very good job of it.
Okay. All right, I need to, a motion for the one real estate tax exoneration due to office error.
But it wasn't all.
I know. I was going, it's on my paper as office
It
error.
is.
It's
It's
actually a reevaluation of the taxes due.
Like I said, so
Okay. All right.
Second, I was gonna make a conversation about that, because it's not an office error.
No, and I actually talked to the West Virginia representative about our appraisals on industrial property last week in Dallas, and you know, hope they do us good. I mean, there's some question on what they do. So, all right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Hess, yesterday, I received a call from some of your employees, and I'm very happy to receive the call. They're very complimentary of your staff, of how well they were handled. It's very efficient, and make sure you, if you would please pass that along.
Oh, yeah, they do a good job. They do a good
Well, it's just nice that somebody, from the
To
general
reaffirm it.
public called and said, hey, I just want to let you know, these guys did a good job.
I get comments from the public a lot of times, they come in and say, look, I dealt with this person up here at the counter, and they were awesome. It's just,
But generally, our calls are complaint.
Yeah.
So,
we get those.
just want to pass it.
All right, thanks.
All right, Mr. Barnhart, board meeting reports.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I had a Board of Health meeting, I attended by Zoom, in Berkeley Springs. Majority of it was staff reports, and everything is fine and dandy. We're in a high classification for COVID transmission currently. I don't know what that means, but that's the way it is. They discussed a little bit about the soil scientist and the hearing procedure, and Bill's going to produce an RFQ about hiring a soil scientist, and I assume he's going to have it out any day now, if it isn't already out. And they discussed, of course, the the hearing procedures. But didn't really, they even discuss maybe hiring a hearing officer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do need somebody who has nothing to do with the case
Right.
and knows a little bit about the system to be a hearing officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they're addressing that. And that was for me.
Mr. Whitaker.
There was 2 meetings. The one, the biggest news out of is for the Eastern Panhandle Transit Authority and the commuter bus service that we will be providing, take all the way to the Ashburn Station and off of 7, or I guess the Dulles Greenway. A couple questions about it, and I had asked him one. I said, will there be any type of special event weekends that, for the cherry blossom viewing, if there's an extra bus that we could, provide that down to there. So a lot of that was through the Matt Mullenix's group. There's a Metropolitan and but yep, it's well underway. There's also in the works for another bus for that service, and they got us a designated stop location at that terminal for the riders to get on and off, and so it's well underway. And then the new station downtown, it's they're still at about that 30% design stage physical print, so they'll be moving along on that here pretty soon. I think
Did they
we
move everything down there, or
Yep.
did they maintain the shop there?
they're still out off of Novak, but everything will be moving in town.
Even the shop.
Yep. Yep, it's quite a nice design. And they attended, the newest facility was built down in Bluefield, I think is where they took a trip to see what their design was and what to do and what not to do. So,
Big difference between Bluefield and here.
yeah, but the ridership's about the same. More,
Is that right?
Yeah. So, But yeah, a very nice terminal. So it was well worth the trip to go down to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're reinventing the wheel.
And then the airport authority, I was a little bit lax on getting in on that. I had to have a hard reset done on my phone, and I lost a lot of apps. So by the time I got my Zoom app downloaded, the meeting was about half over. So.
All right. Councilperson Gokenhour.
Yes, sir. Planning Commission on Monday night, relatively short meeting. We only had 4 public hearings. There was not a whole lot going on there. On Tuesday was Parks and Rec and Sewer, which I was not able to attend. I was out of town. But the biggest news really coming out of Parks and Rec is that they were able to set their budget for this year. So the board took care of that. And like I say, I was unable to attend the sewer board.
What's the total, the line item? The total
I
of the budget?
think it's 4.8.
Really?
I think that's, and I think they're still on track, of being 70% or so self-sufficient.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how big of a budget it was.
Yeah, it's 4.8.
Which budget's
Only
that?
going up.
Parks and Rec. Okay. All right. I really don't have anything to report on. Councilperson Gokenhour and I got stuck out of town, so we couldn't get back in town for a fire board. I did been meeting on and off with the health department a little bit, and just make sure everybody understands that. One of the biggest things I ask them is how do we go from 8% class 1 system or class 2 systems up to 26%, I think it was. My sheet's in my other truck, but to me, I told them that sends all kinds of signals up if something like that would happen in the county council. And we would be digging into it. So the last 2 years have been a huge increase percentage-wise on class 2s, and
Yeah, that wasn't discussed.
right, and Ms. Poland, chairman, is it? They call her the chairman, not the president. Chairwoman said that it could have been because the Elgin becoming class 2, but that wouldn't make that big of a difference. All right, anything else on board meeting reports? If not, any board and commission vacancy activity? Okay. All right, well, it looks like we're running ahead of schedule, so I've seen Mr. Barrett came in. He's here for a interview for the Development Authority. So, Mr. Barrett, if you would tell us a little bit of something about you that we may not know yet. I understand that the summer got a little bit of extra sleep the other night.
Well, and last night was really good. So it may be a little hard for me to tell you something you don't know.
I know.
But I certainly appreciate the opportunity to all of you. It's certainly been my pleasure over the past number of years to work with each of you in the legislature. Again, I'm Jason Barrett. I've served in the legislature for now 8 years, born and raised here in Berkeley County. Own a couple of small businesses in not only the city of Martinsburg, but also in the south end of the county. Looking forward to the opportunity with your consideration to serving on the Development Authority. And I think my connections within the state, being a member of the legislature, and then also, like I said, being a small business owner really gives me a unique perspective that I can bring to the Development Authority. The Development Authority in the county has done a tremendous job with development in our area, in economic development and growth, and controlling that growth in a way that really looks to expand our economy, provide good jobs for folks. And so that's what I'm looking forward to contribute on the Development Authority, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you want to have.
All right, Mr. Barnhart.
Well, we're all aware of your involvement in the community and in the state of West Virginia, and I, would look forward to hearing how you would integrate being a state political office holder
Sure.
and the local development authority. And that's key when it comes to you.
Well, I think so, and I think one of the things that the Development Authority is looking at, the county is looking at, is infrastructure, and certainly the legislature and the state plays a huge role in developing infrastructure in all areas of West Virginia, but certainly those areas where there's a huge return on investment. And I've argued to my colleagues in the legislature that there's no better return on investment in the state of West Virginia than in the Eastern Panhandle, and that starts here in Berkeley County.
Yeah, we would love to have Route 9
Sure.
progress being made, particularly in the right of way, because that's going to be the biggest limitation.
Well, and I agree, Councilperson. I think you're exactly right. And I've been heavily involved with conversations as it relates to water and sewer projects, and hopefully, large amounts of money coming to the Berkeley County from the state to help upgrade our water and sewer, so that we can continue to attract business and have a place for business to locate here in Berkeley County.
I think, Mr. Barnhart, one of the things that we haven't talked about really is how important the extensive Route 9 4-lane going from Martinsburg to Berkeley Springs.
Yeah.
And with the new bypass starting up there, it could tie in very nicely. But, the one thing that you said earlier, Jason, was that, we've done such a good job and we're the economic engine of the state of West Virginia. Well, actually, we have more jobs than we have people. So one way to get West Virginians to be able to fill these slots that we have is to cut the time in half from Morgan County to Berkeley County, and that's what that would do.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that if you look at population growth in the greater Eastern Panhandle, the Potomac Islands, you're starting to see Hardy County is one county that's really starting to grow in population. It's one of 4 counties in the last census that grew in population. So
Right.
I think that you're going to continue to see that in Hardy and Hampshire and Morgan. And you're right, if there's easy access to those areas into Berkeley County where we have jobs, I think that not only helps employers here, it helps us attract employers, but it also benefits the state as a whole to allow those areas that are kind of just west of Berkeley County to continue to grow and have
The
opportunities for their
advantages of
residents.
Morgan County would be immense. I mean, both the bypass going up to 70 and east on Route 9. That's
Oh, without question.
incredible for Morgan County.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Councilperson Vice President Whitaker.
Jason, there's probably nothing that I don't already know that, our
Good
family-
and bad, right?
Good and bad, our families
We won't
go
talk
back-
about the bad today.
Well, I tell you what, there's no bad. Our families go back a long way, so it's good to have you in here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilperson Gokenhour.
Yes, sir. Mr. Barnhart covered a lot of the territory that I had in my mind. So, you know, I just appreciate you taking the interest in serving on this board. This board is really critical to our county and being able to bring good jobs here that are environmentally clean and good paying jobs that the folks they don't have to travel out of this county to go get a job, that we'll have jobs for our kids as they grow up and settle down. So that's, you know, thank you for applying.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. If I can, real quick, is that I appreciate what you said about the importance of the Development Authority, and I want to stress this and make this very clear that I'm going to take this position extremely seriously. It's something that I plan to be heavily involved in as a member and doing anything I can to help attract business.
There is one thing, and along with the other members of the House down there, the airport is having a 100th birthday party next year. And any proceeds that would enhance the air show that we're going to do would be wonderful to have.
I'm glad you brought that up. I will certainly look into that. And as you know, in the past, there have been a lot of, I served on the Airport Authority, as you know, in the past. And, you know, there was a couple of years ago, the governor was able to provide a lot of funds to a bunch of airports across West Virginia.
Yep.
In the legislature, we were able to get some money put in the budget 2 years ago, $1.8 million for an acquisition that I know that you're well aware of. And, you know, so it's our job as legislators to make sure the state is aware of how important the Eastern West Virginia Regional Airport is, and we remind them all the time it's the longest runway in the state, and that it's one of the most underutilized assets. And I'll give all the credit in the world to the Airport Authority, who's done a tremendous job over the past number of years to really utilize the airport in the way that it should be.
And we need to celebrate it.
Why is it hard for us to get more money for our airports? Seems like a lot of money goes out to other airports throughout the state, but we very seldom get the equivalent money to the Eastern Panhandle.
Well, and I don't have an exact answer for you, but I will speculate that part of that is the commercial airline service. And so many of, whether it be Clarksburg Bridgeport Airport or Yeager and Charleston, you know, they obviously have Allegiant Air and some other airlines that fly in and out of Yeager, as you're aware, and we don't have that here. And it's our job, I think, as legislators to continue to fight that fight and then to explain why the airport in Martinsburg is so important.
But, you know, you're a business guy. We're all business people here. And it's just, you know, sometimes you got to spend money and make it better. Right? And I think the Eastern Panhandle, particularly Berkeley County, has always proven you give us a little shot, we're gonna find a cure, and we're gonna be able to make it even better. Right? And the other thing, Legion Air, it's almost next to impossible to find a vacant seat on the thing coming out of Hagerstown, whether you're going to Florida or South Carolina or Myrtle Beach, whatever. And so might be a window of opportunity coming up before long, I would think.
Hopefully. Well, and to your point, the easiest thing in the world is to show other legislators the return on investment, investing in Berkeley County. You all have done a tremendous job every time the legislature has been able to, you know, whether it be the airport or anything else, that we were able to give you a shot in the arm, as you said, Mr. President, and you all show the return on investment right away, and it's the easiest thing to do. And that's one of the things that's a challenge in Charleston is, you know, a lot of folks, everybody is fighting for their area. They want, you know, investment into their area, but when we can show that the return that we have in Berkeley County is so tremendous, and that helps the entire state, and that's the message that we deliver on a regular basis to our colleagues in Charleston.
All right. I just have comments. Jason, I've gotten to know you better over the years, and I've made this comment and told you a good friend of mine that has passed, Johnny Taylor, used to talk highly of you, and he's a good friend of yours as well. And said, man, you're the person, right? And so he got me convinced, right? And so anyway, I've always been impressed. You know, I've always felt that you have an excellent delivery in anything that you want to talk about. I find that you, for the Development Authority, with your, like you said, with the ties that you would have at the state level to make sure that message is being carried firsthand down to West Virginia, whether it's a state economic development authority or whether it's the governor himself. You would, Mitch Carmichael, you can take that and say, look, if we invest 10 million, they're going to give us $100 million back. And I guarantee you, if we ever got the answers to the questions we've been asking, how much this county sends down to the state over the last 20 years or 10 years, how that's grown, it'd be amazing. But I'm thinking that the state's afraid that will give us too much leverage.
There may be something to that.
So, but anyway, and on top of that, you being a small business owner, you know as well as any of us, small business owners, it's tough these days, and it seems like all the bricks are always given to the big businesses, and the small business has to carry all the weight. So, I think you'd be an excellent person to be put on the Development Authority, and I think, Eddie, you do have a vacancy, right?
Yes, sir, I do. And if it's appropriate at this point, I would like to make a motion that we appoint Jason Bear to Brooklyn County Development.
Second.
Have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion on that motion?
You know what the term is?
No, it's a full term. As you know, they go from, they're all concurrent with each other, so we'll give him the date.
Tracy gets back with it.
Yeah,
Get that answer.
if she ever comes back.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, we'll look it up.
all right. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Had discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all so much, and Mr. President, thank you for those kind words, and we certainly all miss them. Thank you all so much.
Those words are well
We'll let you
deserved.
know when your letter's ready.
I would be remiss not to say this, but his grandfather had the best garden in Lakeside.
Is that right?
He did, yeah.
Hey, well, on that note,
Hey,
I
Jason, you
plan.
may want to stick around you want him to stick around for just a second.
Do you have a couple more minutes?
I do.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
This year is the first year I grew a garden,
This year,
and yeah.
I tell you what, if his grandfather was here, he could give you some lessons.
Well, I'm for my first year. I ate my first squash last night. Jackie fixed it up, cut some lettuce,
Oh, nice.
right?
We've been getting potatoes out of the garden. I swear they've been that big.
Is that right? I'm gonna try to keep improving. Mine was raised gardens, and
No,
just
that's
something.
the way to go if you garden on a parking lot.
Yeah, I am on parking lot. I tried to cut my green beans last night, and I was getting gravel on my knees because I moved them out in the full sun. But yeah, I'm kind of happy about that.
Good.
Figure after leaving here, I might have to live off the land a little bit more.
Well, I think we all might have to, the way the economy's going.
Yep. All right. What Mr. Davis was up here talking to me about while we was going was a possibility of pulling the discussion of Amendment 2 up while Delegate Barrett is here, and talk a little bit about that. And Delegate Barrett may have something to say about it as we talk about it, and let people know about the direction that we would go in and how we see this. But I think Amendment 2 on the November election would be more of a thing that I think our legislators have done a good job on designing that amendment to where I'd say at 80% chance it's gonna pass, right? So I think one of the things is that we're looking at that, and Mr. Davis and I was on the radio on Tuesday, and really there's a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of questions on how to make whole. There's questions that we have spoken about and brought to the attention that this county probably has, I'm going to say, more than likely a larger number of pilots in place than any other county, but I may be wrong on that. And that was one thing that was forgotten, was how do you make us whole on our pilots? And we actually have several pilots out there right now open, and we might hear back from one by the end of the week, proposed pilot. So I think the counties themselves, the county government is leery of when it does pass, what's the process, and I think they're worried about being made whole. But as I said something on the radio on Tuesday is we got to put confidence in our legislators. You know, they are part of our community throughout the state of West Virginia. They have to come home, right? And the one thing that I've always said is it's not always about the price that you charge or the tax that you charge. It's about the value you get back for the money you put in. So, Mr. Davis, this is your
Well, you know, as the council is aware and as delegate Barrett is aware, personal property taxes have been discussed for years, and it is going to be on the ballot November 8th as a possible constitutional amendment, and I think we're all pretty confident that it will pass. Jason, about 60 to 65% of the council's revenue comes from real estate personal property taxes, with the lion's share of that, of course, being real estate. This council has been very, very proactive in trying to diversify our sources of revenue, so that ultimately, when this does evolve and come down, it may or may not have a large impact on us. Now, you know, when in the West Virginia Association of Counties have put something out on the listserv where, and that's why I put it on the agenda today, where they would like to have each county take a position on, do you support Amendment 2 or do you oppose Amendment 2? And I've been following the comments, and we have a different perspective than the rest of the state. So, you know, I think what you said on WRNR on Tuesday was, you know, we've developed over the years a pretty good working relationship with our local state representatives, and we do have to have a certain amount of trust. I think the perception is that, for example, if the county loses $4 million, that somehow the state's going to give us $4 million. And I've seen all kinds of proposals, and the one that I like probably the best is whereas the state will assume, rather than give us that revenue, if we lose $4 million, they're going to stroke us a check for $4 million, because, you know, a lot of the counties are saying that can't be sustained. You can't continue to supplement our budget, but they can take away some of our expenses. In the biggest discussion that one of the ideas that was floated is taking away our contribution to the regional jail bill. If we can be relieved of that, and I know Ed,
Hey, let's stop right there and call Dan in.
okay,
You want
that in and of itself would be a lift.
That little baby don't.
11 hours? She's excited about 7 hours. All right, Dan, you're on speaker.
I'm excited if I get 6.
Okay, thank you.
11 hours more sleep than I get.
Yeah. I'd be excited just to get 6 one day.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking about Amendment 2, and just started the conversations, and Mr. Davis was talking to Delegate Barrett about it. So
Can I respond?
Sure.
So, Alan, you're right that one of the proposals deals with the regional jail costs, and so with the Senate plan, I think that's kind of what you're referring to. They took all 55 counties in a way to make each county whole, to give them a certain amount of money over what they were already collecting. And so, for Berkeley County, that meant taking over the regional jail bill, and so. Best of my recollection is that Berkeley County's portion of the species of property that the Senate plan were to exempt was around $16 million or thereabouts. And so the money returned to Berkeley County would be in the $19 million range. and that would take over the regional jail bill. But the way that would be done is that the state would give Berkeley County $19 million so you can pay your regional jail bill if you're able to do the things that you've been doing over a number of years to reduce your regional jail bill. Then that's just money that you're all able to keep. I fundamentally have an issue with a set dollar amount in code to give each county, because it doesn't take into consideration the president's point about pilots. It doesn't look at growth. Even though it could be a $3 million increase to your to the amount that you're collecting now, that's 2021 money. What happens in 2040? And your number at that point could be 25 or 26 million. So I'm under the belief that in policies that I'm advocating for, set up some type of formula to allow counties to generate that revenue in their own county, whether that be a 1% sales tax, whether that give 1/6 of the consumer sales tax from the state sent out to all counties. Maybe a portion of that is sent out to all counties equally, and the rest of that is done on a per capita basis. And that way, we don't have, the legislature doesn't have to go back in 10 or 20 years when we've had other population shifts and other economic shifts, for lack of a better term, where some counties that may be struggling right now in 8 or 10 years may be doing really well, but they've sold out for $20, and they may have sold themselves short. So, and it kind of creates, again, for lack of a better term, a food fight at the legislature when a county is not getting enough money. Again, they sell it for $21 at $16 million. In 2030, you might need $25 million. Then legislators need to go back to the Capitol and say, Berkeley County needs this much more money. These other counties that were receiving, maybe $8 or $10 million, well, maybe their numbers would have been 4 or 5 at that time. So I think it just sets a really bad precedent, and I'm always supportive of some type of formula. You put the formula in place, you incentivize counties to continue to invest in economic activity. If you give them a 1% sales tax, then you guys are going to be on the hook to go out there and ensure that business comes to Berkeley County, that you have an environment in which people want to do business and people thrive. And that would be that much more revenue that county collects. So that's the position that I want to take and that I'm going to take. But absolutely, I think that Amendment 2 will pass. I think it should pass. I think it will be incredibly important for business. To your point earlier about we do so much for large business, and you have to do it. I don't fault anybody for offering pilot programs to large business, because if you don't do it, they don't come here. Right. But we don't offer pilots to small business, or we don't give those incentives to small business. So I think by exempting the business equipment and inventory really creates a level playing field for all business. And then obviously with exempting the automobile tax on every citizen in the county, I think that's incredibly important too. But I want to stress this, that the legislature is completely committed to ensuring that all counties are made whole moving forward. It's just my position that we implement policies that allow you to generate some of that revenue here in your own county.
For high grade, and I don't want to speak for the council, but I've been here long enough to know kind of how their mind works, which is kind of a scary place to be sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, for a high growth county like us, and I know that there are 54 other counties that like to have the challenges that we have, but if we could ever accomplish 3 things, somehow getting the state to assume the regional jail bill, because we do state current with us. We have $3.2 million budgeted this year.
But we're spending how much? What's our budget in our recovery services now?
That's over $2 million. For
well over $2 million, probably about 2.5.
Right. If we could somehow shift that cost back to the state, which I think we all, at least locally, feel that that's where it belongs. But if you would give the counties some way to, particularly high growth counties, to raise additional revenue. You mentioned the 1 cent sales tax, which we think absolutely would benefit us. But the other thing that we've been working on for years is the rollback.
Sure.
The rollback kills us.
Yep.
The council, we roll back the levy rate 25 points this year. which, you know, we're fortunate that we were able to sustain that through other revenue sources. But when the economy is good, we have to roll back the levy rate. But
With
when
no
the,
floor.
yeah, but
Oh,
when,
I mean,
when
yeah.
the economy
No, ceiling, I'm
tags and
sorry.
real estate values go down,
There's no floor.
yeah, it's hard for us to ever recoup that. So
Sure.
if we could ever accomplish those three things,
It'd be huge.
it
But
would be huge.
But, and here's the thing on that, if I could, real quick, Jason, I'm not gonna ponder over it, but, my example that I gave last week, when we was out of town was, just imagine with the inflation that it is today, I can't imagine how much your 6% sales tax has grown at the state because of inflation. It's doubled probably, right?
Each, so there's 6%, each percent is, for this fiscal year is $267 million.
257,
267.
267.
And that's up from about 230 or so. So that's 37 million times.
I'm surprised it
$190 million.
I'm surprised that it didn't go up more than that, a lot more than that. But so just imagine that if, because of the cost of material, the cost of fuel, all that's doubled. You know, and although you don't tax groceries, but a lot of stuff has doubled or tripled and quadrupled, right? So your fuel taxes went up, but then again, rightfully it should go up because the cost of doing road maintenance has went up more than what the tax has gone up probably, right? So, but we're not structured that way, because if our property values go up that's on the books, right, because of inflation, which all of our cost goes up, we're capped at 3%. So what my example was just imagine the state's sales tax doubled because of inflation, but yet it was capped at 3% growth.
Right. Yeah, we far exceeded that 3% growth.
Yes, they would never do, right? They would never ever be able to do that. So that's probably the best example I can give the state. The other thing is we are the fastest growing county in the state of West Virginia, and we're probably in the top 50 in the nation percentage wise. Not that I'm speaking proudly about that, because it disappoints me somewhat, but I know growth is good. I think rather than trying to work out a formula on the regional jail bill, I think Senator Blair said one time, if you show that you're doing basically almost everything that we're doing already, we could be the template that the state would take over the jail bill, which would be cool. I mean, it doesn't have to be a formula. It just has to be, you have to meet these certain criteria.
Right. The county's going to have the requirement of implementing drug rehab programs and those type of things to keep the regional jail costs. But one of the things that drives up regional jail costs that you have no control over is some of the behavior of magistrates, and some of them don't, aren't on call when they're supposed to be. They don't let people out when they're supposed to be. They set ridiculous bonds, and that just keeps people there at $40 a day, a night for each of you, and you have no say over that, but you have the obligation of paying for it.
Right.
And so that's a fundamental problem with the system.
Yeah. What was the other one? Because I had something to.
Talk about sales tax, the rollback in region.
Doug, if I could just for a second, I think it's real. I think you guys made a couple statements that are very, very important. When you look at counties, and I'll take Canal, which is the biggest county by population in the state. If you look at what they're doing, they're decreasing in population, and if you fix a number, a county that's decreasing in population all the time is going to benefit from that number if it's a fixed number. If it's a number that grows with the population and with with the industry growth, those type of things that are happening in Berkeley County, we can keep up. But if we don't have some type of number that will expand as we expand, then we continue to lose, and we'll struggle with paying for our services here in Berkeley County.
Good point. Yeah, that's our thing. We're lagging behind all the time on revenue and things of that nature. And the other thing too that I really like about the 1 cent sales tax a penny, which has served many municipalities very well, is that the example I gave about that is we have, and Eddie, you know this for firsthand, is there's a huge part of our public safety that is spent on Interstate 81. I wouldn't be, if it was 80,000 cars a day 3 years ago, it's probably pushing 100,000 cars a day today that are have been a strain on our public safety, right? And don't pay a penny when they stop here.
And because of the gas costs, they probably didn't fill up in West Virginia to take care of roads.
Yeah, well, but you know, I've noticed here recently, West Virginia fuel, where I've been filling up, is cheaper in Virginia, a lot of places. So
81, yeah.
yeah, so it's just, and what I mean by that, if those people stop along up and down the 81 corridor, or if you say that you, like you said, if you get fuel tax down to where people want to stop here to get fuel, which means they're going to maybe stop and get something to eat and spend some money at a convenience store, that takes a little bit of it's hard for people to understand, but it takes a little bit of a burden off the taxpayers of Berkeley County.
That's right, because the personal property tax is paid by West Virginia, Berkeley County residents and by Berkeley County or West Virginia businesses. And so, you know, when you're able to get revenue from tourists, I mean, if you look at sales tax in Tennessee, it's really high. If you look at all the taxes in Florida that they have when you go spend some time there, and West Virginia has done a tremendous job with increasing our tourism. And the folks that come to West Virginia for tourism, and rightfully so, they should. It's a beautiful place to be. They don't look to see what the tax rate, the consumer sales tax rate is of that. So, and I think it's incredibly important, you know, to get that message out. And one of the folks that are against the sales tax, any sales tax increase, I think fundamentally don't understand. You know, seniors and lower wage earners, very little of their money is spent on things subject to consumer sales tax. Obviously, their rent, their mortgage, their utilities, their insurance, the groceries, all those things are exempt from consumer sales tax. So, you know, they have very little disposable income to use on things subject to consumer sales tax. So, a 1% increase to consumer sales really isn't a burden to seniors or to lower wage earners, and that's the misconception that people have.
So I could. Talking to Senator Blair that 2 years ago, one way to look at it is just sort of like when I was in Dallas, I started Googling going up interstate, you know, what's the tax basis in Texas? Well, first thing it's 5.25% state sales tax, and the local has an opportunity to do up to 2%. Right? Then I checked into the real estate tax while he's going up the road, because there's a huge amount of infrastructure going on down there. I mean, these bridges are like crazy, bridges over bridges, and span concrete I-beams 300 feet long, right? And so I asked some people on a set amount of a house, what's your real estate tax? It was a upper scale house. Sure. It was $20,000 a year. So I looked up a house that was equivalent to here, that should be appraised at that. It's nowhere close to that appraisal, right? Because of the way we're structured. And then you turn back around and you're paying 60% on the appraised value. It's $2,400.
Well,
They're paying $20,000.
Texas has some very nice discounts if you're a veteran,
Right.
homestead.
You don't have income tax, right?
They have some very nice discounts.
But, you know, the one thing that we never negotiate here in a pilot is real estate tax. We're already giving 40% of it away.
Right.
Right? And that's the thing, when the legislators look at this, can't never discount that. Mm-hmm. And I've always said one of the ways to make up the personal property tax is increase the real estate tax percentage.
Yeah, which would, to be honest with you, would be a very heavy lift in the legislature. I think one of the other aspects of Amendment 2 that is, you know, with the exemption of the species of personal property, equipment, and inventory, you know, I think that with increased development, increased business locating in the state and in Berkeley County, I think that you will see your real property collection go up as well, because you'll have additional businesses here that will build large commercial properties, and obviously that real estate value will go way up if you really collect it.
Tony, if you get that rollback taken care of.
Hey Doug, I got another question for you. Do we know if there's going to be some type of structure of what this tax reduction? Because my understanding, it's going to be a partial personal property tax reduction, not completely doing away with it. And do we know what that's going to look like so that we can educate the voters when it comes time, or are we going into November without a plan, if you will, so that we can relay that to the voters and educate them on what that amendment is actually going to accomplish?
That's already been approved, right? So that's,
No, we don't, there is no set plan of what would be exempted at this point.
oh, okay.
But the conversations have been about 4 or 5 different species, and that would include automobiles, that would include inventory for business, machinery and equipment, leasehold investment, a few others. But the one that I think Dan's alluding to is for personal property, not a vehicle for individuals. And so like if you have some farm equipment, that would not be exempt unless you have a business. So if you're a farmer who has an LLC, would certainly qualify, and all of their property would be exempt. But if you have,
But that tractor I bought to do my raised garden wouldn't.
right, unless that's exactly right, unless you have an LLC that's under.
Does that mean that sole proprietorship businesses would not be included in that tax break?
Well, no, I think that's a business. Sole proprietorship is registered business with the Secretary of State's office, so I'm not an accountant, but I would assume that would be exempt as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, all Amendment 2 does, it says that the legislator can develop.
That's right.
It doesn't say that they must, and it doesn't say how. It
That-
just
that-
says they'll look at it.
That's exactly correct. Currently, as you all know, property tax is in the Constitution. This takes it out of the Constitution, which would allow the legislature to go in and reduce or eliminate tax. Under no circumstance does the amendment give the legislature the ability to raise that tax. It is only a reduction or elimination. But Dallin's point is exactly right. Once the voters approve that amendment, it simply takes it out of the Constitution and allows the legislature to make that reduction or elimination.
So it goes back to what you said.
So my biggest concern really is, are we getting the cart in front of the horse without having something out there for the taxpayers to look at in November? That was my concern.
I don't think that's going to concern the taxpayers as much as it is the county government to be made whole. That's why I think that's the concern with the County Commission Association. The taxpayers know that they're going to get some type of tax break.
They're going, the tax on automobiles will go away. The legislature will absolutely approve that, and I think that would be, in my opinion, first on the list. And I think that the message to voters would be, this is the first step in eliminating your car tax. Without this step, it can't be done.
Yeah, and that brings up another thing. And I'm surprised the assessors in the state of West Virginia hadn't talked about it. Is appraising personal property tax, some of their staff don't need,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Goes away.
That would be up to the assessor.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
But I understand your
I'm
point.
saying that's
Well, and
they have, and we have huge turnover in the assessor's office anyway. I'm just saying that that's one thing that the counties haven't even thought about is that it could be that there alone would be some money in the budget.
50% of the assessor's budget comes off of taxes generated, so it would definitely affect him.
Yeah, on the.
But that's one of the things that we're telling voters is that, look, that not only would we eliminate your car tax, but we would eliminate the process by which you have to
Exactly.
fill out the form and tell us what car you had on July 1st of every year.
Now, one thing you said early on in the conversation was, and I just want to put this bug in your ear, is that the state of West Virginia could take 1% of the 6% sales tax and give it out to the local county government or municipalities. However, I've got a better suggestion is to get the JB's auditor's office to rewrite their program to where we know or can be shown where each county is, what 6% sales tax they're bringing in from each county,
Yep.
rather than Walmart saying, okay, this is our sales tax for the state of West Virginia, this is our sales tax for Berkeley County.
Well, that's exactly right, and we are working on trying to get those numbers and get that information, because that's really hard when you're, if you want, part of the replacement for personal property could be just a 1% for each county, and it's hard to estimate what each county would receive if the state doesn't collect the data of which where all this money, which county these monies are generated in. So,
Right.
We can come up with an educated guess, but essentially that's about all it is. And so, just so you're all aware, if there was a 1% county tax, that would still be, remitted to the state, and the state would send it
Right.
out to the county, just as it does with municipal 1%.
Right.
And he assured me that he can get me those numbers, because I asked him 2 weeks ago when we were in Wheeling at a conference. And he says that they can do it by zip code. So I want to give him a little bit more time to get it, but then I'm going to call him and say, okay, it's time. With those numbers. But Jason, I know right now that I say it's a very, very high percentage, probably 98% passage rate on this. Sure. I think it's a great idea. I support it 100%.
Well, we appreciate that.
Personally. But we're going into this totally in the dark. And so the trust that we're putting into the legislature right now is blind trust. The governor has a plan, the House has a plan, the Senate has a plan, and they're all three far apart. So where do we land, to make sure that our schools and our government entities are be able to do the things that they're required to do? You guys, you all deal in this, you've dug down in this, many, many times, but to me, I think you can do it all if you do it by percentage rate across the board. You can take care of the income tax. You can take care of the business and inventory tax, personal property tax. If you would do everything incrementally by percentage rates, it's the safest way to go. It's one step at a time, and it's not a wipe the slate and we start over and nobody really knows. But by percentage, you can control it as you need to, up and down.
So you're saying instead of eliminate, do it by percentages over the years to check to make sure to see how it stabilizes.
Yes, sir. And to me, like a 20% reduction the first year. Let's see how we roll with this. And then perhaps the next year after, you go another 20%, in 5 years, because we know historically that our state has not always been financially as strong as what we are today. And it concerns most of us that think about this stuff where we may be 10 years from now. So that if we took those small steps, we
Sure.
could do it much safer.
And I think that the reason that we're looking at doing personal property all at one time is because of what that does for business. And when you say in West Virginia, look, we'll no longer have tax on equipment and inventory, we expect businesses to want to locate here. I mean, we have Nucor and Procter & Gamble, and all these folks have come here because we've exempted those taxes. And so that is the one thing that, if you talk to folks at the Development Authority, both here locally and the state, the first thing business says is that they have a problem with is the equipment and inventory tax. So I think that's the reason to get that out of the way initially. And to your point about the three different plans and the personal income tax, all the studies show that reducing personal income tax by 10 or 20% is a nice gesture, but that doesn't move people here. Unless the way to move people here with a personal income tax reduction has to be at least 50%. And so the problem is, you could do that 50% reduction, or you could do the personal property equipment inventory elimination. So I think that's kind of where we're at. Once the voters approve the ballot referendum on election day, I think that's going to send a very clear message to the legislature that they want, you know, an elimination of personal property tax. And I think that's the direction the legislature will go then. The 10% reduction in personal income tax is a nice gesture, but that's really all about all it is. It is not going to you know, incentivize people to move here, you know, to save $20 a month on personal income tax.
No, and there's a lot of, or I'm gonna say a lot of people, there's a few people that I know that has residence in Florida, and they just stay there more than half, right? Maybe one day more than half because of the no personal property tax.
Personal income
And
tax.
so that qualifies them, right? So they're gonna go in there and buy, you know, a home, whether it's a trailer or whether it's a $500,000 house, to get that exemption. And they're gonna do the math to make sure that whatever they buy down there, they're not going backwards.
Right.
And typically when those people do that, they spend a decent amount of money in the state they call their new home.
Yeah. And Eddie, to your point, you know, the legislature has had a flatline budget for 3 years, and we're going into our fourth one. And so the natural growth in the revenue side of the budget is about $140 million a year. So if you take that 140 times 4 is $560 million, which is about the cost of the totally eliminating or exempting all the species of property that we're talking about doing, so that we have that additional $560 million every year now because we've had those flatline budgets for 4 years. So, you know, that's why I think we're able to eliminate those taxes without really putting a financial strain on the state's general revenue budget. It's because we have saved $140 million a year each of the past 4 years.
Thank you. And I know that this is not part of this amendment, but while you're in front of me, I have to please allow me to mention that the homestead exemption rate that is currently across the board, across the state, $20,000 is so unfair to the folks in this county. And so
It should be a
when you-
percentage of your
when you
value.
Yes, sir. This needs attention. So please.
I'm
if there's
well
something you
aware,
can do.
and you know, there's been talk in the past of taking it from 20 to 40, and does that help? Yeah, but it doesn't solve the problem. You know, it just, you know, it's setting an arbitrary number for all 55 counties. I think we have proven that through several different policies and things across the state. That's the wrong way to do it. When you have a house in Berkeley County that's worth $250, and that same house in McDowell is worth $60, you can't give it $20,000. You can't give it the same across the board exemption. It's just the wrong way to do it. And your point's well taken, and I think it ought to be a percentage of
And it
value.
could be done, yeah, it could be done off the average appraisal of houses through the assessor's office, because that's done annually pretty much, rather than the census, which is every 10 years.
Yeah, and you have an assessment of everybody's home.
Right.
If the assessment is
The
60,
paperwork's-
right.
the numbers
Give them
are already done.
Percentage of their assessment.
Right.
Jason, as I look at listserv for the Association of Counties for the past, you know, couple of weeks, you know, of course, this has been a big topic of discussion. Majority of the counties, of course, oppose it. It seems like the ones that have the strongest opposition are the coal counties, because they're going to be losing that
Huge personal property.
right on mining equipment. You know, one of the things that we discussed, we get coal severance.
But the thing about it is, those counties are the ones that a lot of those are dying, other than one or two of them.
Right.
And so their money that you're giving them is going to help them over the years, where it's going to kill us.
Well, and one of the things
I'm
those
sorry,
counties need to understand is that, you know, when there was a huge downturn in coal, what happened was a lot of these coal companies moved this heavy machinery out of the state because they didn't want to pay tax on it anymore. And now that coal's back, coal's up, you know, met coal especially, and steam coals are really expensive right now. You know, those companies have had to either bring that equipment back, or they're not bringing the equipment back. And look what that's doing to the county. So it's not putting people to work because they don't have the machinery and the equipment there, you know, to be able to put people to work. So, and I think that it's short-sighted on their part. But at the same time, you look at, you know, with the exception of Berkeley and a handful of others, when you look at personal property tax collection, you know, it's a downward trend. To your point, is that if they sell out for $20, $21, and that downward trend continues, then they've really done good for themselves. And so I think some of those coal counties, it's really short-sighted on their part to do that, because a lot of this equipment's out of the state now because they weren't making money and they couldn't afford to pay the tax on that. So
I think if it would help, we give up coal severance.
Yeah, that was Eddie's discussion
You know, if it-
before
if
he even
it-
got it.
We
Got
can get sales tax or some kind of modification.
I floated that idea to him.
We'll give up coal severance.
Yeah.
I mean,
What is your all's collection coal severance now? A couple 100,000, 200,000,
225, 250.
My thing was,
well, we would put that money back into coal counties.
It's a 75-25 split.
Yeah.
75% of it stays in coal generated counties. The other 25 is split.
It gets less and less. I mean, we don't put
Sure.
we don't pay any recurring expenses out of it.
Right. It's 25% goes to non-coal producing counties and that's distributed per capita.
and I've said this before, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when this county was relying really on orchards and farms for its revenue, the coal counties took
Right.
care of us. And I have no desire to turn our back on them. But we do need the ability to take care of our growth, So to me, let's send those dollars back where they came from. They need it today worse than ever in their history. So
All right, so let's. We got to watch our time, but so this is a crazy thing. It just came to mind. If Doug Barrett said that the coal companies they kept 75%, gave 25% around to the counties that didn't produce coal. What about if the larger counties that's growing keep 75% of their 1 cent sales tax and give 25% of it away? I'm just saying. I mean, that could be another thing or something, but give them the coal severance money back, which is $225,000 a year just from us. And
Which is probably, you're the largest non-coal producing county.
yeah, but I mean, but then the how many coal producing counties we have now? About 5.
No, it's more than that. You
Is there?
get some in the northern panhandle. I mean, that's
Okay.
Marshall County is a coal producing county state, but they're obviously Kanawha and all the ones south of Kanawha.
Right. But anyway, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to look at it to try to be fair. But I agree with you, Eddie. I mean, they took care of us all those years and helped us out.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's in my mind that I'm keenly aware of, and it's may be a negotiating tool.
All right, so we're beating this to death. We got people in the audience waiting for us. So
This council's official statement, we're not going to oppose it, but we're not going to support it, that we're going to trust
right, exactly.
that we have a good working relationship with our legislators. We're going to trust that they'll work with us to do the right thing.
Well, my other thing, real quick too, is it seems like we're having a great conversation with Delegate Barrett. Why don't we have a little workshop with our local legislators in the next month? And let's start talking about our concerns and what their concerns are and try to get together.
I'm happy to help do that if that's it.
I mean, that's what we need to do. Let's have a workshop, public workshop, and talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that the message you will hear from us is that under no circumstance are we going to pass anything, or would we have the votes to pass something that would not keep all counties whole.
Right.
So I think that's, at the end of the day, if counties go bankrupt, it's up to the legislature to pay the bill, and we don't want to do that. So,
Or take over.
Right. I mean, counties are created by the Constitution, and if you all can't pay the bills, the state's going to have to step up and do it, and that's not what we want to do. So we want you all to flourish, and I don't think you'll hear any legislator say that we don't want to keep counties whole in this process.
Do you have any interims or special sessions scheduled?
Special session is your guess as good as mine.
Okay.
We do have interims in September. I don't have that date off the top of my head. No interims in October. November interims are actually at Capon State Park. So, you guys may want to venture up there a day or two and get to meet with some folks. We're going to have some tours when we're staying in Morgan County. We'll have some tours that come down into Berkeley and Jefferson County. So we'll get with you guys to make sure that you're all involved.
We'd love to have
Yeah.
you in our Bay Report Center.
Okay. We'll go and set something.
Hey, Doug, I just want, if I could just a second, make sure I make it clear that I am for the, supporting the reducing taxes at any point, that we can do that.
Yep. All right. Thanks.
And Delegate, if you have them in your control on Friday, make sure that, like, come Friday evening, you're
Down Route
bringing
9
them.
about 4 o'clock?
Yes, sir, please.
5 o'clock?
Thank you.
Okay. When we send them back to Morgan County, we'll take them that way.
Very good.
About 5 o'clock.
Yeah. 5:36.
They need to
Yeah.
see what these folks go through out here every day.
I'll tell them
Try to
don't
get
make any early dinner plans in Morgan County.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
You'll-
move.
You'll be backed up from hedges all the way to Tractor Supply. All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Appreciate it.
Sorry about that. We kind of threw you right in the mix.
That's what I'm here for.
All right, so Mr. Davis needs direction to go back to the County Commission Association and Association of Counties. I'm like Dan. I mean, obviously we're all business people here. We understand the percentage of chances this thing passes good. I think that we need to support it and embrace our legislators and trying to work with them on making the counties whole, especially Berkeley County. That's my thought. So
Consensus.
you might as well say, I mean, you can say, if you want, you can say we're neutral, or we can just say we support it and we trust our legislators to do the right thing. So which way you want to
I
go?
think I'm in favor of supporting it.
Me too.
Same here.
You
All right.
making a motion, or is that just?
No, we just need
Consensus.
direction.
I support it as well.
All right,
All right,
I'll respond accordingly.
all right, we'll call you back, Dan, here shortly. Dan. All right, you already hung up. All right, anybody need to take a break since we're behind now? All right, we're moving on. Next on our agenda is the fiduciary deputy supervisor, Ms. Stevens, for a state hearing for Linda Lou Mason. Good morning. Had to check. So you have a hearing for us, and anybody here for the hearing? Or?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, all right.
So today I'm presenting a petition to probate the original last will and testament of Linda Lou Mason. She presented in our office on August 10th. She is the daughter and named executrix of the decedent. So she presented the will and a petition. The decedent drafted her will in 1981. She provided that all three of her daughters were to take as residual beneficiaries, and she did have two witnesses, as the law requires. However, the witnesses did not sign a self-proving affidavit. So normally in this instance, our office would instruct the named executor to locate those witnesses and have them sign a deposition that the decedent was not unduly influenced, that was, she was of sound mind, above the age of 18 at the time that she signed the will. However, the will is 4 years old, and it's impossible as both witnesses predeceased the decedent. As such, our office respectfully asks that the council consider probating this version of the will, despite the failure of the self-proving affidavit.
Okay. Jeff, you have any problems with that? Okay, all right. Entertain a motion.
Move to accept the will as presented to the fiduciary's office. What am I looking for? Just as presented to the office, fiduciary's office.
In solemn.
In solemn form, yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
That was the word.
You,
That
you,
was
know,
in solemn.
you notice I don't, on these cases, I never give the language, right? I wait for somebody else to do that. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
Second.
Second, any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. I can say. You're welcome. Thanks. All right, next on our agenda is Tracy Gillums, Grant Administrator, West Virginia Arts, Culture, and History Grant Award and Acceptance. And Elizabeth is it with her. Told you, Elizabeth, I'd get it down.
Yes. The first thing is the acceptance of the grant award from the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History, Cultural Facilities and Capital Resources Grant. It is for the roof for the building at 110 West King Street, for the Eastern West Virginia Museum of Culture and History. The grant period is 12 months. It ends June 30th, 2023. The award amount is $70,000 with a minimum of 50%. When we applied for this grant, we applied for a total project estimate of $350,000. We requested $175,000 and the match would have been $175,000, and we were awarded $70,000 for the total cost towards the roof.
And we can actually go out and try to recruit other grants, but that's what this grant would do.
This grant, it was written specifically phase one, which was the
For
roof.
Mhm.
We can go back for 3 years for a maximum funding amount of $750,000 for other phases.
Right, right. All right, entertain a motion to accept the $70,000 grant for the roof, towards the roof replacement of 110.
So second.
Motion's been made and second. Any discussion on the motion?
So though, is this a total roof replacement
Yeah.
for what, 350?
Well, we'll have to put it out for bid,
Yeah.
but that's,
Funds. We can use ARPA funds for our half, right?
but that's,
No, you can't.
We can't.
No, it's
We
not.
can't use it for grant.
It's not.
Right. No.
For this particular one, it's non-federal matching,
Correct.
so it's
Okay.
local.
Okay.
all right. And the other thing too on this is we really need to figure out get Gary involved to figure out how we're gonna heat and cool this place and make sure that that's not gonna affect the new roof. Rooftop units, how's it gonna be done?
Right, and if you remember when we had voters in there,
Mm-hmm.
we actually had to install split
Couple
units,
mini splits, yeah.
some mini splits, which we've now removed, so there is no sustained source of heat. in it.
Yeah, I think the big thing on something like this, when it's a public building, some days you may have 10 people go through it, sometimes you may have 1,000 people in one event. You know, so you gotta make sure that the AC, the heat
Well, it has
never
to
an
be climate
issue.
controlled anyway because of the nature of
Objects.
the exist.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is heat's never an issue. You always have enough heat because the more people you get in there, the more heat they generate. You typically only need heat. Sometimes in the wintertime you need AC. It's the AC that really makes a difference. So, all right. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. You have a bid recommendation, conflict resolution class of for the law enforcement.
A bid recommendation for conflict resolution with effective communication. The funding source that'll pay for this is the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act grant. The RFP was published in the Journal with sealed bids accepted for 2 weeks, closing on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 at 4 p.m. A sealed bid was received from Sextant Business Navigation Specialist Incorporated doing business as Institute of Leadership Development from Fort Mill, South Carolina. The bid was opened at 10 a.m. on Thursday, August 4th, during the regular council meeting in the amount of $26,220. And it will pay for 6 4-hour classes to be taught in order for all not more than 133 law enforcement emergency management, including 911 dispatchers and firefighters to attend.
And that will be, they'll come here to do that? Okay. All right. So need a motion to accept the bid for the, whatever she said.
Conflict.
This is 100% grant funded.
Yes, this was 100% grant funded.
It's a mouthful.
You have the sheriff's cooperation with it?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Actually, Sheriff Central and I guess Emergency Management, right?
Yes.
That's where we're coming up to 133 people.
Our
I guess.
firefighters.
Right.
This was the second class that was after the first communication class.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Have a motion. Move to approve.
Move to approve, I'm sorry.
Have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. All right. Thank y'all.
Trace, don't run away, please.
Yeah.
Once I get you in here, I can't. You're not getting out.
All right. So we need to call Dan back. just dial a number, just give it time to go, Alan.
Your call cannot be
Hello.
All right, we're working, Alan's up next on the supplemental general fund request.
I've been keeping an eye on you. Y'all doing a good job.
All right, buddy. All right, next on our agenda is Alan Davis, County Administrator, supplemental general fund request. Mr. Davis, if you start us off, please.
Yes, sir. This is, and I consider this an ongoing discussion regarding some funding requests that we've had, as well as capital and land development projects. This discussion actually started back in January, February of this calendar year, when we were establishing your fiscal year 23 budget. As part of that discussion, some of the outside agencies came in with supplemental requests. They made supplemental requests after their hearing, and some of the council over the past 6 months have come to me with some additional ideas for funding of some non-recurring expenses. Then back in April, May time period, we had several discussions over the course of a month or so regarding some capital and land development projects. What I would like for the council to do is continue discussions not only on the capital and land development projects, which includes the acquisition of some adjacent property to Poorhouse Farm, of course the development of the Inwood Community Park, some possible expansion of land and property that's adjacent to the Morgan Park. Of course, we have the Frog Hollow and Route 9 Trail. We have the North Berkeley Park, which is being developed, which will require some additional costs that may or may not be available for payment by either the Board of Education or the Parks Department. We've had some preliminary discussion about educational, for lack of a better term, educational playground at the airport, airport-related playground. Of course, we had discussions the past couple of weeks for additional acquisition of property at Sportsman's Paradise. And what I would like for us to do over the next month is come to agreement on the projects that we want to do. I had the council, I guess it's been within the past month. I know Council President Copenhaver wasn't here. You did the resolution that allows us to reimburse ourselves for some expenses that we may incur on, ahead of time for some of these larger projects. You've indicated an interest, and I need some further direction from the council to borrow $10 million, up to $10 million of bank qualified funding this current calendar year, and maybe a possible $10 million next calendar year, if we're going to pursue some of these projects in earnest. I really would like to have a decision in the next month or so we can develop the RFP and get it on the street.
Well, just a reminder, the reason why this county council had their business hats on up until now on financing what we did was because we could never borrow money cheaper than what we could. We were borrowing money almost down to 2% on these big projects, and maybe slightly under 2%. And it was because of this reason. Interest rates has went up drastically. We're not going to be able to borrow money near as cheap as we were when we were doing these other projects. We haven't borrowed money for a couple of years now. We hit those. We couldn't have hit them any better, right? So now's the time that you're going to see the council more than likely spend more towards cash than borrowing on some of these projects. I mean, you're
Correct.
still gonna have to borrow, but it's not gonna be at 2%. It's gonna probably be, could be as much as 4.5 or maybe 5.
Right, and with the change, and we had one bid opening scheduled for the expansion of the health department, which
We got tabled.
we tabled it, but that may be coming up. We did have bid opening 2 weeks ago on the renovations to this building. And it came in about a third higher than what we expected.
That was last week, wasn't it? Had to be.
Week before.
Okay.
Yeah, you were at the funeral.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, yeah.
So, we had anticipated total cost of the project to be slightly less than 8, with 6 million being directly attributable to construction. The bid came in, it was slightly more than 9 million. So, knowing what we know, we talked about design and renovations to the Crawford building, the health department. We have a meeting this afternoon to discuss the expansion of the Day Report Center. I just, knowing the capital projects, knowing what we want to do with quality of life, knowing what we have in our quality of life fund, knowing the projects that the council wants to do, I'd like for us to kind of prioritize not only our large capital projects, but also we need to talk about, some of the supplemental funding. And then once we have that, then I'll come back with a spreadsheet identifying how we're gonna pay for it.
All right.
The council made a commitment to our employees last week with pay increases. We've encumbered $1 million for the roof at 750 Baltimore Street, and hopefully that work will begin by the end of the month. That may or may not be eligible for reimbursement through the American, through ARPA funds, maybe. You're gonna look at that. But I don't want to overcommit ourselves. And as I said, if we're going to borrow money, certainly now would be the time to do it. But if we want to do $10 million of bank qualified funding this year and possibly $10 million next year, we need to get that. I need to get that RFP.
I think, I don't think you have any choice to borrow the 10 million this year. You don't want to lose out on that 10 million bank qualified money.
I don't.
Right, you have to.
But I don't want to pull that trigger on my own either.
You can always. Wow, you'd be responsible.
Well, I know.
So is that your first question? Do we want to move forward with an RFP for moving forward on the bank qualified?
Correct. And
10 million.
Just because we put the RFP out there, once
Doesn't
we have the
mean-
rates, it doesn't commit us to borrowing. It
Right.
just means that we're going to pursue bank qualified money.
So you need a motion on that, or you want just a
Just
direction?
consensus. The council's already directed me to do it. I just wanted to make sure that the consensus is still there to do it.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
I mean, right?
All right. So in your spreadsheet, this is the most updated version. I listed the capital projects, the land development projects, which includes most of the parks projects that we have, as well as some miscellaneous projects, which it includes, the redevelopment of 100 West King, which is further down the road, that really won't happen until we get the clerk's office up here. You can see that the projects that are in white, we've already committed to and we are paying for out of the general fund. That money's already been allocated. Some of the funding, the projects in yellow, Tracy has already assured me is covered under the American Rescue Act plan, which includes the renovations to this building, as well as the
Crawford Building. if you-
Crawford Building Health Department, which would more than exhaust our ARPA funds. And then in the projects in red, particularly the acquisition of the 70+ acres for the Courthouse Farm expansion, the development of the Inwood Community Park, of course, the additional property to be acquired adjacent to Morgan Park, and any funding to be set aside for the development in North Berkeley Park. We have not decided on funding for those projects. I think collectively,
And all of those projects are ARPA
there are
qualified.
large projects.
Doug, is this a handout you guys have? Because I'm not seeing it on my read ahead.
Yeah, it is a handout. Let me snap it and I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
So parks development or ARPA. Okay. Okay, so that's about $2 million. Here, you can, here, I got it. You've seen it before, I think. And I know in addition to what's here, and in addition to what I put into your read ahead, there's some additional supplemental requests that you'd like. And like I said, eventually what I want to do is consolidate all of the projects, all the requests into one spreadsheet, so we can prioritize what we want to do and identify funding sources.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one
All
thing,
over the board right now.
well, yeah, and there's some that's not even on here yet.
Right.
So, I mean, I think these are pretty much, most of these, not all of them, but most of them we've already said that we're going in that direction, and we've already committed to a lot of them. So, I guess the ones that mainly up for discussion today, and I've got some that's not on the list here as well. Let's start off with, unless you tell me different, Mr. Davis, but
You're the president,
I know, but I always ask permission. I've been married for 40 years.
not to me.
All right, so Poorhouse Farm acquisition, I don't like, personally, I don't like owing people money. And we've been very fortunate for two brothers in the area that actually has fronted this money. I talked to Tracy and Elizabeth in April this morning about land and water grants. They're telling me it's only good for up to $350,000, which we can always use that toward one of these other parks that we hope to do, Sportsman Paradise, Inwood Community Park. I want to get this money paid off for the additional property to Poorhouse Farm sooner than later. So I would like to make the suggestion to take that out of the ARPA money.
So you can use ARPA instead of quality of life for this.
Let's use it out. What do you prefer? I mean, I'm thinking quality of life, we have more flexibility. We can use that for anything. I like to take advantage of the ARPA money if it qualifies to use it for this. And we're being told, and Tracy and Elizabeth, Dan is saying yes, shaking their heads, that it does qualify. I just think that, we was given 3 years. It's been probably at least a year now. I just want to wipe this off our
The
slate.
letter of intent's been in place since December of last year.
Right.
But I agree, it
And I'm thinking
would
that
be better
number is
to
like,
take care of it sooner rather than.
I was thinking that number was right around 8. I don't think it was 750, but I might be wrong. But whatever it is, they're not charging us any carrying cost. They're not charging anything other than they want to recover their cost. And actually they need to be recognized for the discount that they're giving us for the carrying cost that most of us could never even dream about.
Okay.
Right? The interest and stuff that they just said, we're not doing it for any, as far as I know of. It's just basically recovering their raw cost.
Very, very generous.
So
Jeff, do you have this? Do you have this?
Do you want more copies?
Yeah, please.
I got it. I'm good.
So
So you want legal and Tracy and I to move forward on the acquisition of
I do.
transferring the title to the property or the
Is
council?
that the direction everyone wants us to go in?
For that, yeah, for that.
Well,
Right.
what about, does this add expense to Parks and Rec?
No,
Yeah,
not yet.
When will it?
when
Um,
it starts to be developed, after the, master plan is developed, then
Because, they're gonna need some more funding.
it will.
well, we always talked about that.
So all these parks, no matter which one you're talking about.
And that's where the quality of life comes in. You know, even if businesses stop coming into Berkeley County, which more likely they won't, and part of our payment in lieu of taxes is quality of life payment, then, the county, we've always said, is gonna have to infuse more money.
So,
So we're not talking about getting that and transferring it to Parks and Recs right now anyway. We're just talking about securing the property, isn't that correct?
Well, the Parks and Rec doesn't own any property, it would stay under the county council's ownership.
Right, I understand that, but we're not asking them to take over operations out there at this point. We're just trying to secure the property.
Right, we're making good on a promise that we made. So, yeah, we're not looking to develop additional. Mr. Palmer, you're here, so bring your lovely daughter with you if you like and be part of this conversation.
Is there any maintenance to this
And,
property?
and honey, I don't know where you get your good looks from, but it's gotta be from your mother.
No, they don't pay attention to me. I got you. What can I tell
She's
you,
got
sir?
long, beautiful hair. Where's yours at?
All jokes.
the ugly heads God covered with hair.
That's exactly right.
All right.
What
so-
can I contribute to this conversation?
Well, we're just wanting to make good on our promise, and we're wanting to make sure that Scott and Stan Roach is recognized, for what they do in the community. And I know they don't ask to be recognized, but we want to make good on purchasing the property. We were given direction. Mr. Barnhart said, what about the development and additional costs? We're not looking at that right now. However, one of my things is the $128,000 additional trails, which could either go through the existing poorhouse farm, or it could start incorporating into this new piece of property.
Sure, and we are actively, through this master plan, we are incorporating that into the plan right now. Like the new drawings we've done, which I think Eddie's been part of these conversations, is that's actively part of what the plan is this acquisition. So a lot of that has already started to happen, of even where we're moving some of the things we already have and maybe incorporating more of our playing fields into the existing park and letting that be more natural and kind of transition some of that
I'd
idea.
like to see more environmental concerns be devoted to this 70 acres, even working with an environmental group or the school system or whoever's out there, Audubon Society,
Yeah.
and, and give some environmental consideration rather, as in addition to public space and all that kind of stuff.
Sure, and what we kind of did, and I'm the first environmental science class to ever come through Shepherd College, so I agree with you on that. I'm an environmental guy. We kind of took a line when we looked at the park for this master plan. We drew a line, and we kind of just came through and bisected and said everything on the front side, on the Poorhouse Road side, we said that could be active. And everything from that other line, we said that's passive. And it's going to be that same thing, environmental, more passive, more stuff along those
Well, there's
lines.
nothing to say that you can't put environmental into the active part.
Sure, no, but we looked
Plant
at
trees and,
Yeah, we looked at ball fields, maybe doing ball fields and other stuff on that side, but dedicating a large portion would always be for that passive recreation, for environmental education. Those conversations are definitely a big part of what we're doing.
So, okay, all right. So you happy with that answer?
Yep.
Okay, so your direction, you're along with us to go ahead and just
I've been going along with you from the beginning,
I
even
know.
though sometimes I don't
But you
understand,
kinda
or, you're like, what
put
the
a
heck is he
hurdle
talking
on-
about now?
put a hurdle in the way once in a while, but, and I'm getting too old to jump them.
Jeff, can you take lead on getting in touch with the Roach family?
Dan, you okay with that?
We bored him.
Yeah, Doug, I'm okay with that.
All right.
Sportsman's Paradise, we have, of course, we have the strategic plan going on there. We've got some other things in the works, so I'm not sure we need to do anything with that right now.
Right. Inwood Park, we don't need to do anything with right now.
Inwood Park, we received the first preliminary kind of layout, but it was real rough, so, you'll be hearing more on the development of that in probably the next month or so, don't you think, Eddie?
Yes, sir.
Morgan Park, I think we've made an immediate impact on that. We
Oh my
cleaned it
gosh.
up. We took the tree the tree that had fallen in the water. We've had community service down there. We've got the site cleaned up. And
Done a
I know
wonderful
that
job.
There's been some discussion about with Matt and Anthony on some possible acquisition of some adjacent property.
Right.
But we really don't have anything further to report on that right now, but that is ongoing.
Right. Frog Hollow and Route 9 Trail, we give them $57,000 for the study. We're gonna need money for that before.
It is, CEC met, with us last Thursday morning.
Yes.
To give an update. We have, there's some ongoing discussions that are occurring with Department of Highways, with the Eastern Regional Jail, as well as trying to figure out how to get around the Rural Farms convenience store that's out there. So I think they have some ideas on that. Dan was in the meeting, councilperson Gokenheimer was on the phone because he was stranded in Texas, but that is ongoing also.
All right, so now we have North Berkeley Park. Chris, Justin Henry, and a lot of the community businesses down there, and other people, even out of state, has committed and has already performed work up to a minimum of $150,000 towards that park.
Yeah, so Justin sent me an email. He couldn't come today, but yeah, there's been a lot of in-kind stuff. I mean, engineering for Fox and Associates. There's a lot of, and there's more there too. But before we moved forward, or Justin felt comfortable moving forward, we needed to solidify some stuff with you guys before he kept pushing
Right.
some of the private donations.
So Justin put a price tag of doing a large percentage of this park, if not the whole thing, of about $500,000. The community has, and this is probably what you're going to end up doing in Inwood too, because Inwood and South Berkeley is so community minded that there's $150,000 that's already been designated in kind or a contribution, a monetary contribution to get this park in. So what they're asking for, I think, Chris, if I'm correct, is $350,000 to get this park started.
I think that's what it is, Doug. I'm sorry, I don't have that. I do. I mean, I have the plan and
That's the number Justin and I talked about.
yeah, I think so.
So,
And that's the number that's reflected on your spreadsheet.
right. So, again, that could come out of the ARPA money, and would be well qualified for that. I know this project. I believe Eddie is shovel ready. I think it's already got its approvals, right?
Yes, sir. It's been through planning.
Yeah. So this is one that needs to be taken a look at and taken care of. So I would like to move forward on that one of doing the $350,000 from the ARPA fund to have a total amount with the $150,000 in kind or monetary donation from the community, and have this up to $500,000 to get this thing started. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, and I think it's important that we show the community that
Right.
this is what we're about, and here it comes.
Well, yeah. Dan, you okay with that?
Yeah, I didn't hear any comments from Mr. Palmer about whether the Parks and Recs is ready to move forward with it or not. But I think, in my opinion, I think it's great to be able to move forward with it and try to get it done. And it's great that we've got that funding available.
Yeah, Dan, we did have, Justin and Bob did meet with the community and the adjacent development specifically, and they did address, there were a couple concerns, but they were very minimal, and they actually had a really nice group of people that came to talk about it, so it seemed like it was a, very supported project down there too.
Good.
All right.
Okay, so
You okay with that, Dan?
$1,000,001 of
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
commitments.
All right, the other thing
Make
that,
sure they don't overspend.
the other thing that Parks has brought to our attention, and they even give us a presentation of a additional walking or hiking and some other trail activity or something that's over in Hagerstown that y'all really like.
Yeah, so the original idea that we didn't come up with this, there's a Marty Smith Park, which is right along 70. And it's a very linear park that, regrettably I hadn't seen until the last couple of years, and I went over there and it's amazing.
I had something just come to my mind, and they'll tell you if I don't speak, it will leave as fast as it came. We need signs on 81 to let people know that park's there,
Oh, 100%.
right? Because
Yes.
that's when we travel down in Florida, we look for parks to stop and take a break, let the kids play.
Yeah. And we just did, I don't know if you all know this is a little topic, but we just did outsource all of our PR, all of our website design, all of that stuff we just outsourced. And that is part of the package that we're developing right now to really have a big push for all those things, because we haven't done a great job of that, and it's a priority for us. Is we're going to market as well as we can so people know what it is. And trails are easy. An app where if you're out there, instead of going, here's a trail, we have a GPS. And, your phone already has it. It'll show you maps. And so that is a priority for us.
Well, you and your board and your staff are doing a wonderful job.
We're trying.
Wonderful job.
We're trying. So it's a lot of change. We're doing a lot of stuff, but yeah. So the original idea of Marty Smith Park, there's a part of Marty Smith Park that is that Marty's Mystical Woods. And until you see it, it's kind of like, okay, there's some big ogres that they carved in wood, and there's some, but the idea is it's a very natural setting that has some climbing stuff, some ropes, and it fits perfectly into getting people to the other side of Poorhouse, the other side of the creek. So if you don't right now want to hike the mountain or ride it, it's a pretty aggressive to get on the backside of the mountain. So what we thought was along the one hole is to make that part of that linear thing is to incorporate that along the backside of the first hole of the disc golf course. And what's great is if we take the next part, which Earl's action to get the other piece of land, that can extend from this section and give a reason for people to move down to the other part because it is expanding. But it's worth going over. If you want to see it, it's amazing. They have, I can send you pictures, and I actually printed them out and I forgot it.
They've seen them.
You've seen the pictures? It fits perfect with the Poorhouse Farm. And like I said, the idea is to get people to the other side and give them a reason to do something on that side of the park in the nature part instead of being on the other side.
And that's a great thing. The federal government and the state government wants people promoting to get outdoors, right?
Sure.
And that's what this is designed to do. So, back 3 years ago, we didn't have the funding and we didn't have the grant writers that we have today, right? So we had good ones, but these are great, right? So we're able to do this because several reasons. We have the funding. The state of West Virginia has been blessed somewhat because of I don't want to say blessed, but people want to come to West Virginia because they love the outdoors all of a sudden, right? Because COVID created this thing, you need open space. And
Well, that's what West Virginia advertises West Virginia as.
I know.
The New River Gorge and the National, whatever it is.
The News
all
National
that down
Park.
there.
yeah,
And we need some of that up here.
Right.
And we haven't, and, until recently, we haven't had it.
right. So, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. I mean, it's like I said, it's pretty. If you all have seen the presentation, I mean, it's a really easy, it's sustainable. A lot of this stuff is wooden, so if with time it changes, it's pretty easy to swap out pieces. It's also pretty easy to expand. It won't affect any of the other projects out there because it's kind of tucked into some spot that's really underbrush and thicket, and it would fit really well.
Okay. All right. So this has been these conversations on this park's been going on for the last 6 months, I think.
I think we
right?
started back in February.
You're ready to get started. It fits into your master plan and all that stuff.
It would be perfect it would be a perfect fit. Like I said, it would be something we could do independent. A lot of stuff we could probably save some money to and expand it more because a lot of this stuff we can do in-house. or in-kind donations, because some of the stuff, building some of the structures are pretty easy.
Right. And the
So,
wood
yeah.
carvings, you probably get somebody to do that even.
So I actually talked to the guy that did the carvings for them back, he lives in Gettysburg, I think, and I talked to him 6 months ago, and he was more than willing to work with us as much as possible. And that is a pretty, it's not a lavish expense, but it is a pretty big expense to get the carvings. But some of that really does make it special.
Well, there's a guy right out there on Route 9 at Backward Valley Bridge that's carving bears and all that nature stuff. So.
Right. And some of that, Doug, I think would be, really important to have, just because it would make it a little, more unique. Yeah. But yeah, we would be ready. We would, it definitely fits into what we're doing. Yeah, it'd be great.
There's a gentleman I know that would be great to talk to about this, and he should have been born 300 years ago. We really should have. I mean, he hiked a lot over the last couple of years, and people said, "Well, aren't you afraid to get eaten by a bear?" He said, "Only if I'm lucky." Right? And this guy just farms to draw horses and stuff. He'd be a very interesting guy to help out, and he's one of these guys that it's never about money for him. And so I'll have to hook you up with him.
Yeah, I mean, we're really, one of the big pushes we're trying to do is really expand the community, because even, on the giving side, we're trying to give more opportunity for the community to sponsor things, not like, hey, sponsor, but actually sponsor something in the park. We even talked about, concrete, cornhole, to give people stuff that's a permanent, that could be the Copenhagen family, whatever, and have donations so you feel more vested in our park system.
We're pretty competitive though.
What's that?
We'd like to be competitive over cornhole.
Oh yeah?
We get pretty serious about that.
There you go. First one up. So yeah, it's great.
And I'd like to say too, this guy that I was talking about, he's very environmental. He's
environmental's the word to speak of the present and the future. And anytime you can incorporate environmental into what you're doing, that's always a plus.
Yeah.
Always. Sure.
All right, so what do we want to do on this? I know I might start to make Mr. Davis really nervous. But I'm ready to move forward on this one as well.
Isn't that something we could use the quality of life funds for?
You could. You can start burning up some of that money.
I mean, that's what we've been hoping for. Let's
All
put
right.
it to use.
All right, Eddie wants to use quality of life money for this 128,000.
I don't remember that number, Doug.
It's about 128.
It's close to that, yeah.
I think that's a great idea and a great use of that fund.
Okay. All right.
Dan has spoken.
So the direction's on that one. That's all you got.
Yeah, that's
So
all
wait a
that I know
second.
of, Doug.
Can somebody have you kept total on that? We're well over $1 million, right? That Chris has asked for.
American Rescue's 1.1.
What
In ARPA funds.
so far?
So far.
Yeah, 1.1 plus the one plus 128. So we're at 1.228 that Mr. Palmer has gotten from us today.
But the 128's not coming out of ARPA, that's.
I know, but total. I'm talking about Chris Palmer's cost today.
Do you want him to submit, you want the parks to submit us invoices, or do you just want to you just want them to submit one, like you've done in the past, one invoice for 128,000 and cut a
Well, I think
check
the
out?
thing that we've done, that we've said that we're going to do on these projects is make sure that the work, I think that actually the reimbursement Jeff's working on, that would come straight from us to the Roaches. The North Berkeley Park, I thought, we do.
Well-
He needs to submit an invoice. You're right, because they're going to manage that
The
project.
128,000, send me an invoice. The ARPA funds will have to handle a little differently.
You can submit an invoice, but I need all the invoices and the checks that we wrote to pay those as backup, that that's where that money that we're cutting.
And
So-
we haven't done any of that yet.
So do you need are you saying that you can front him the 350 for the North Berkeley Park, and then he got to count for the 350, or you're saying he's got to spend the
You
money?
can do that. You can do it either way.
Because I
Give
mean,
them the 350 and they just send us the invoices and the checks, or they submit
Which way, I mean, actually, you,
That's an Ask Teresa question. I don't actually.
right, but I mean, naturally for you, it'd be better to be fronted to 350 rather than to cough up to 350, right?
Just and Tracy would work with Teresa,
Right.
but because it's federal funding, there's pretty stringent reporting requirements.
He'd look pretty in federal prison. Though.
But you already called me the perfect
So have Teresa call
I will.
Tracy, but then send me an invoice for $128,000
Okay.
because we can cut that direct. We'll cut that directly out of quality of life.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And Chris, on a serious note, you're doing a wonderful job.
Well, we are trying. It is a huge process, and there is a massive undertaking for infrastructure and organizational what we're doing. There's some growing pains. They're doing a good job. We're getting there.
Dan, I know you probably have something to say, don't you?
No, I think they're doing a great job, and I think I think with all this stuff going on, I think hopefully Chris is looking into the future to hang on for another year or two to keep his position there, so that he can help get it all moving forward.
He's a very young man yet.
Yeah.
So.
And the makeup of that board, I really, when I look around that table and see, the fresh new ideas, the enthusiasm, and then when turn the corner, I see good, solid foundation, historic resources there. I think they got a good mix there. I think you got a real good board.
Yeah, we are doing good stuff, and we're doing a lot in committees. We have working committees, so there's a lot of stuff. And I mean, Eddie and Ken are already really part of our board and help a lot and contribute a lot, and it's great. And we actually now, Board of Ed, we had a really nice meeting, thanks to Eddie, with Ron, and so we're starting to get a better relationship with the Board of Ed, and they're going to send a representative to start participating the same as Kenny and Eddie did. So it's everything's working. It's getting there. It's getting better, and we have a good board, and I'm very happy with where we are.
All right. Well, thank you.
You done with me?
I think so.
Thank you, guys.
I mean, that takes care of all your stuff, right?
I guess.
Did somebody share with Chris about the concepts and the conversation about last week? And hopefully you guys, all the council, got the information that I asked Alan to distribute from our meeting with CEC.
We did not distribute the frog hollow stuff, but I'll make sure everybody gets the
Okay, thanks.
I'll send that to you.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
everything, guys.
Now, I know that takes care of the council's most immediate needs. I know you wanted to talk about that and kind of get that narrowed down. Do you want to continue with this list, or do you want to email your additional requests and then we put together a master list?
I think the only other thing that I'm not going to say, Whitaker, you need to, I know you all have been starting to talk about the air show. And I guess here before long, if that's going to happen this summer of 2023, you're going to have to start making commitments.
We have made commitments and have already spent some money as far as putting the contract for the air show person that's going to go out and get the axe for us. And there's going to be another payment coming up pretty soon that the airport authority paid the first one, and then we have to take this money, reimburse the airport authority, then take it back, I think, to MRB Foundation, and then MRB Foundation.
300,000, if memory serves me right, was for the air show.
For the air
Did
show.
not include any continuation of the fireworks.
No.
And it did not include any kind of park,
No.
aviation park going out. That
Well,
300,000 was just for the air show.
I hope, Alan, I think that I would clarify that. I believe that 300,000 part of that. I think it was, if I remember right, 175 was the air show, and 125 of that was that educational facility. But maybe you could read in a little deeper into that information. But I believe that's what our conversation.
Okay, I misunderstood.
The playground's 175,
Yeah, it's just the opposite of what you said, Dan.
120
Okay,
for the air
okay,
show.
maybe it is,
You
yeah.
know, the air show's probably gonna be more.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought y'all said it was more.
Yeah, my thought for the air show, so we knew that all the bases were covered, was 300,000, but we were gonna incorporate the educational park in that, so if it could be raised, it'd be greatly
Well, the
appreciated.
only reason I brought that up was because I was thinking if you're gonna have the air show, that playground would be maybe an important part of it. We don't have to do this today, but we need to keep it on the agenda and keep talking about it.
How about, I know Dan wants to be involved in the discussion, and I know all of you have some additional. Why don't, in the next 2 weeks, either see me and give me
Numbers.
any additions that you want, and I'll put it back on the agenda for September 1st.
Well, though, I'll go ahead and tell you what I've been thinking about right now.
Okay.
The playground at the airport for 175. And then I think some of us have been approached by Trip Tobin about helping out for the ball field for the Legion, which is also over on our piece of property for a turf infield. Those are the only other two that I can think of that's not on our list already.
So could I interject a second? We had, and if at all possible, I'd like to even address this at this meeting. And the reason I say that is because we have a $750,000 grant at the Roundhouse that we've had for, 8 months that have been approved. And Alpha came back with an additional cost of $38,085, if I remember correctly, that the Roundhouse sent in a request to be added to this list, and I don't see it on there either. But we're dead in the water, and Alpha will not continue. We had a meeting, a week or two ago with the Department of Transportation about this, and everybody's on hold until that payment gets paid to Alpha. And if there's any way we could address that at this meeting, it would at least start that long, drawn-out process of that grant moving forward. That's probably going to take another year to get done anyway. It would be nice to start that process if possible.
So how did this additional 38.5 come into play, Dan?
Well, so the grant was submitted by Alpha to the Department of Highways. And they were supposed to put all costs into that grant. And after the grant was awarded, and we started a conversation back and forth with the Department of Highways about us actually implementing that grant. Then Alpha got involved with the Department of Highways and said, "Oh no, Alpha has to administer the grant because the permit or the plans need divided into individual bidding sections instead of which is totally ridiculous if you want my opinion, why you can't use a single plan for electricians and somebody that's going to do the elevator and somebody that's going to do the floor to look at one plan. Instead, they're saying we have to divide it into individual plans to be approved. And so anyway, that cost, all Alpha said, well, that's what needs to be done, and we didn't include that in the bid. So now the Department of Transportation won't allow us to move forward until that's addressed.
Well, we've been dealing with this. I know that Dan's been dealing with it in particular since February when this information came out. Look, if that's what's holding the train up, let's get rid of that and move on so they can move on with this project.
So you want to get the train out of the station?
Yes, sir.
No pun intended.
No fun. And I know none of us are happy with that decision. However, that is a roadblock.
All right, so that's the direction we're going on that one, and where is that money coming from?
Well, that would have to come from your contingency. And I think I have the exact amount. It's not to exceed 40,000, I know. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 38 and change, or 30 something and change?
I think it was $38.85 or something like that, if I remember correctly. I think I forwarded Doug an email just a little bit ago that has that in it. He should have that.
I think I have an old email with the invoice attached. We can put that on your purchase order log for next week if the council so chooses.
Get it paid.
We'll take it, we have a line item set up for the roundhouse. We'll pay it out of that roundhouse line item, and then at next state budget revision, I'll transfer the money over.
Dan is correct, $38,085. 38,085.
Get it
All
paid.
right.
It'll be on next week's purchase order. How
All
much
right,
was that, Doug? 38?
38,085.
All right, I'll take care of that.
And Doug, as for the fund that you guys were discussing, that Jim was discussing about the airport, I mean, the airport has taken an action that they'll continue to move that project forward with the air show and continue to expend funds with the understanding that at some point they're going to get some funding to help with that air show. So I don't think if we're going to digest that over the next couple of weeks, I don't think that's going to make a difference.
Okay.
What is the amount that the foundation intends to be able to raise? Is that
There's no, I mean, it could be used for multiple things. It's just not for the air show itself or anything like that. So there's multitudes of items that we could,
use it from?
use it for, yeah.
If you remember when the last contribution that the council made to the foundation, it was all inclusive of the 250th, because they kind of took lead on that plus the fireworks.
Right.
And they kind of just gave us a general list of what they needed and how much it would be funded. Do you want me to get with Nick?
I was gonna say, maybe we get with
Nick.
Nick or get him to come in or something, but set with Nick. And also mention to him that if at the end of the air show for the Sunday event or whatever, the evening, the ones I've been to, that there's usually a fireworks display there. So that's been an additional,
40 grand or whatever.
yeah, that could be put onto that.
Now, on that money, and actually part of that, I'm 90% sure, we have to be given the cost of that to match the money that we gave.
Correct.
Or that money's rolled forward to the next event, right? Because like we spoke about, somebody spoke about, said last week, what a wonderful event that was at the airport this year. And you in the perfect spot. Now Nick's saying it might not be there next year, but they'll move it somewhere else there at the airport. But a perfect spot to hold that. And man, if you weren't able to make it there, you missed a heck of a show.
You missed a heck of an event.
Who was somebody just said it was the best event they ever been to in Berkeley. Oh, Mike Hornby, the best event he's ever been to in Berkeley County. I said I agree.
It was a good day.
Yeah.
So I'll get with Nick and find out estimated cost on the playground, air show.
Yeah.
We'll put it all together and I'll have him come in.
You'll have a wish list.
Legion turf, how much do you want me to plug in there? 100,000?
What was that?
The Legion, the turf for the field.
I'm not. We're going to keep that on our list. And
Okay, you don't.
I just
plug
need
a
to have.
number
I
in
think we
right
need
now.
to talk. That's something that I think Tripp should come in and
Okay.
give everybody a rundown.
Okay.
A true.
If I'm remembering correctly, he had said something about $300,000 and trying to get that from 3 different entities. But I agree with you. Maybe we should get him to come back in. I'm sure he'd be willing to come back in within the next couple of weeks and have a conversation.
I know that the Martin Percival Village is going to do turf on 2 of their smaller fields on the infield, and it's $300,000 plus. And this field is a senior field. It's a huge field.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say that infield's gonna cost $300 to $350.
Well, I'll get with Nick. We'll schedule a trip to come in and talk to the council, and in the next couple of weeks between now and September 1st, if you could give me any additions that you want to this list and an estimated dollar figure.
Yeah, I like to keep talking. I would just put this stuff on the agenda at least every 2 weeks right now.
Yeah, we'll put it back on for the first.
All right.
Next week's pretty cool.
Because I even for the air show, and where are we talking about the playground equipment being? Is that going to be close to the terminal?
Yes.
Perfect. That way the kids can play and then they can get something to eat and all kinds of stuff.
And they,
Right on the right-hand side coming back to the terminal.
Okay.
and they are looking at possibly putting in a pavilion with a little snack area
Uh-huh.
that is for viewing. They'll have to do some tree trimming to
Right.
make that more visible, but that's something else that's on the list there too.
Okay.
That's part of what the foundation can.
I got a crazy question. Does the federal government have anything that they would want to put in since it would be promoting Air Force?
Nick would have to answer that question. I know there's certain items that you can only use specific monies for.
Right.
And so I'll leave that one to Nick.
I mean,
But
I
would say
would think that would promote their side of the base as much as it would ours.
it would. I might have to even look to Tracy on that to see, educational parks, because it can't be a playground at an airport. It has to be an educational park.
We have looked in that with Nick
Mhm.
and we haven't found.
Found anything? It might be out there in foundation money from other corporations that may have something like that, but it's not on the government side.
Well, one of the things we were talking recently about, Nick and I had a conversation. If you look at that equipment, and it would be good to have him come back in and show what kind of equipment and what this equipment looks like. But this equipment it actually looks like aeronautical equipment, like a fueling truck, that type of thing. And the thought process was maybe get a hold of a local company that supplies fuel for the airport, and maybe try to get them to sponsor that fuel truck equipment, that type of thing. So there's a thought process on trying to get, and then their name could be right on the side of that fuel truck educational equipment that's there to for the kids to play in, and so maybe even some of the industry that's in the area sponsor some of those things, if you will. So that's kind of a process we were having here recently.
Sponsor those things, Dan, for naming rights, to where if someone actually stops sponsoring, the name changes because you're selling the naming rights.
Correct.
No, yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah, and that should probably be a foundation issue. The foundation's responsible for that part of it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get our first naming rights sale done before long. All right. I think we've skinned all the cats we needed to here today. Is anything else? We'll pick up the rest of them in 2 weeks.
September 1st.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Dan. All right. I don't think we have any need for executive session today.
No, sir, we do not.
Okay. Any items from the public? All right. Mr. Barnhart,
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to move the recess.
we are recessed.
There you go.